anybody's on. Comment like yesterday so I can see who's on. I'll nearly skid it off the table then. We're there. Hi, Mrs. Naylor. Hi, Mrs. Yates. Okay. Oh, we've got 9 people watching. You're famous, Alb. Hi, Miss Paul. Thanks, Mrs. Naylor. Hope you've had a nice day too. Oh, hi, Lauren. Hi, Tina. And JB probably watching. Oh, so glad you're watching, Lauren and JB. 18 people we've got, but we've got a couple of minutes until 5. I hope everybody's enjoying this cat entertainment. Oh, we've just gone down a viewer. We were on 18 and now 17. Someone's obviously not into the cat footage. Okay, that's enough now. That's enough now. Oh, Lauren and JB have got some snacks as well. I've obviously got some rich teas with me. Mrs. Naylor says hi, Albie. Oh, I'm just going to get my cup of tea. Oh, hi, Mac. Mac's on. I'm sulking now because I've taken the treats away. Oh, Kezia, that must be. Hi, Kezia. Hi, Miss H. Love from your mother. Thank you, Mummy. What time is it? Just have a biscuit while we're waiting. I won't wait as long as we did yesterday. But we'll just wait a few more. Oh, Brooke's on. Hi, Brooke. And Archie, if Archie's there as well. Oh, Emily, you're with your cat. See if you can get your cat to come up to your screen. I've got my cat. Say hi to Emily's cat. that sounds good, Freya and Kayla, making your own newsround report. I'd love to see it if you can send it to me. Video it. Just while we're waiting for the last few people, yesterday I shouted out on the video everybody who came up on the comments when I was watching it, but then afterwards when I went and read through the comments there were quite a lot of people who'd commented but it just didn't come up. I didn't ignore you and just pick some people to shout out. So keep commenting, and if I don't say you, I promise it's just because it doesn't show up until afterwards, but hopefully more of you yesterday. There are a few people that I definitely didn't say hi to. Hey, Mr. Lawson's at the window.
Oh, what would you know?
I'm Mr. Lawson's dog.
Enjoy, buddy.
Say bye to Mr. Lawson. Oh, he said hi to everybody. Just come up off his bike, I think. Lizzie's on. Hi, Lizzie. What time is it? I'll give it till 5 past and then we'll start. Oh, Ryan's done a project about Chelsea on PowerPoint. That sounds good. Send it to me, Ryan. I'd love to see it. Quite a few of my class have emailed me and I've loved reading them. So everyone in my class, you've all got my teacher email in your home links. So drop me an email, tell me what you've been doing. Oh, the Delaney's are on. Hi, Delaney's. Donna Coombs. Sasha and Tommy, maybe? Sometimes you need to put who you are because I can't necessarily tell from your grown-ups' names. Mrs. Hammond's on. Hi, Mrs. Hammond. Hi, Jack. Hi, Mrs. Williams. I'm glad you've tuned in again, Mrs. Williams. I miss you. Okay, so I'll do a quick recap of where we got to yesterday. So we've got Chaya, who's our main character. Hi, Mrs. Green. And she lives in India in, get my notes, in the Kingdom of Serendib. In a town called Narissa, and she's a bit like Robin Hood, and she steals from rich people like the king and queen so that she can give the jewels or the money to poor people to help them. So she has taken some gems and jewels from the queen's bedside drawer. She nearly got caught, and her best friend Neil has been arrested for her, and because he's her best friend, he's admitted that it was him, even though it wasn't, and he's in a prison cell waiting to be executed because the king is really strict and really cruel. And Chaya says she's going to break him out. So that's what we're going to find out next. Hi, Jack. You've been playing Xbox with Freddie. Oh, that sounds good. I'm glad you've been keeping in touch. And Caris is on. Hi, Caris. So I'll just read the last page of the last chapter because I always like to do that when I read my own books. Oh, Imi's on. Hi, Imi. How many Delaney's are on? Write a comment telling me which Delaney's are on. So they've just come out of the prison. And Father has said, I'm so sorry about all this for you, Neil, his family. She squeezed his hand back. If only she could tell him she had no intention of letting Neil go to his death. His tools, which she'd hidden, oh, that was it. So she took him the fruit and she hid his tools from when he carves the wood in the workshop in the bottom because they might be useful. But she wasn't counting on just that. No, this job was mostly Chaya's. Chapter 10. Alana, Ethan and Toby. Hi guys. Hope you've had a nice day. Dewdrops spattered on Chaya's skin as she brushed through the shrubbery. Toby's watching. Hi Toby. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep losing my place, aren't I? I'll try not to look at the comments because I can't see a comment and see that someone's watching without saying hi to them. I'll try and at least get to the end of page 62 before I say hi to anyone else. Dewdrops spattered on Chaya's skin as she brushed through the shrubbery. Dawn was a good time to be doing this. Nights were the worst. People were tense and waiting for trouble. But early morning, the night having passed, and people were in a good mood. Not at all expecting a thief to strike. At least that's how it worked for robberies. So Chaya hoped stealing prisoners was much the same. The first hurdle was getting into the royal complex. There were guards at the entrance and on high posts at various points along the outer walls, not to mention the ones dotted along the top of the inner palace compound with a view of the grounds. Chaya leaned against an ironwood tree and considered her options. She was safe here, this patch of wilderness away from the palace where she could see without being seen. But how to proceed? There was a rustling behind her and a red-clad figure emerged. You! Chaya pushed herself off the tree. What are you doing here? Are you following me? No, said Nawa, panting slightly and adjusting her head covering. I was going for a walk? At this time of the morning? A likely story. I heard your friend, the boy. Nawa looked down and scuffed the ground with a beaded shoe. Chaya sighed. I don't know what you expect me to say. Thank you for your interest. Now, please go away. That thing you said the other day, said Nawa, looking up. Chaya was beginning to wonder if she was deaf. What did you mean when you said you were going to break in somewhere and steal something? Listen, I'm touched by your concern, but I'm kind of busy at the moment. I don't have time to chat, okay? Nawa looked from Chaya to the palace complex in the distance, the lion statue pale and faded as it rose up against the dawn mist. Oh, Harley's on. Harley's been in the hot tub. Lovely. How nice. Mrs. Green's on. Hi, Mrs. Green. Oh, thanks. Thank you. I did say at the start, if anyone missed it, I'm saying hi to everybody who comes up on mine in the comments, but yesterday afterwards, when I went and looked at the comments, there were actually a lot of people who had commented, but it just hadn't come up when I was filming. So if I don't say hi, maybe comment again and it might come up. Are you going to rescue the boy? Said Nawa. Will you? I can help you. You? Chaya had a sudden urge to laugh. I figured out how to open the box, didn't I? Chaya ignored that. You, the daughter of Kasim the merchant, who wears silk dresses and fancy shoes as everyday clothes, who could be spotted a mile off in your sequined finery? Nawa scowled. What's wrong with that? The girl obviously lived on another planet. Nothing, said Chaya. There's nothing wrong with it. Just leave me alone. She darted away and sped off into the wilderness adjoining the east side of the royal complex. There was no point engaging with Nawa. She'd done enough damage already. Chaya took the long way round, ducking behind the palace and emerging on the other side. This was the western end of the complex, next to the temple where she had her lessons on a Wednesday. The temple's white pinnacle towered up, piercing the now milky early morning sky. There it was, the temple, her gateway into the palace and Neil. The temple even shared a wall with the palace. On Sundays, the full moon days, the monks went into the Queen's prayer hall through a pathway connecting the two, and from there it would be just a matter of Chaya sneaking into the underground prison. All she needed was to get into the temple. That was the first hurdle. Chaya hesitated by the low boundary wall. Why would she be going in today, a Thursday, when she had no lessons? What if one of the monks asked her? Her teacher, the old monk Mahanama, might be there for all she knew. She turned away and squinted into the empty road. A red shape was moving slowly ahead towards the city gates. Chaya sighed. There was no other way. Nawa was her ticket into the temple. She hurried up the road, running along the length of dazzling white scalloped walls. "Hey!" she called out. Nawa turned around, a startled look on her face. "You said you wanted to help." Chaya slowed down as she reached Nawa. Nawa eyed her suspiciously. "I did." "Well, come with me to the temple." "To pray for the boy? You do know I pray to a different god." "No, not to pray, to rescue him." Nawa cocked her head. "Why go to the temple then?" "You'll see. Come on." "Oh, Freddie's here. Hi, Freddie." "You've been playing the Xbox with Jack. That's good." "Lizzie, you should read another book when you finish." Yeah, I did think that because this has been really popular. I did think when we finish this one, depending on what happens with school, that, yeah, that would be really good. I did think that. Chapter 11. Chaya hurried back down the road, checking to see if Nawa was following. They passed the usually bustling entry into the city, the pale morning glow bouncing off the white brickwork as their footsteps echoed in the deserted road. Nawa caught up with Chaya and walked beside her, silent but pink-faced with excitement. Chaya stopped at the entrance to the temple. The sparkling white dome towered mountainous in front of them. At the foot of it, a line of child monks in their saffron-coloured robes walked their morning lessons. A quiver of excitement was beginning to tingle in Chaya as they went into the compound. "Okay, so this is what I want you to do," she said. "I'm going to show you around." Nawa frowned. "Why?" They followed the path, Nawa staring at the heart-shaped leaves of the peepal tree on the side. "Well, I'm not really. That's what I'm pretending to do. You're a foreigner. You want to see things. I need an excuse to be here." "Do you study here or something?" A monk nodded at Chaya and Nawa as he swept leaves off the ground, the eccles of his broom rasping on the stonework. Chaya put her palms together in greeting and smiled at him as they passed. "Yes, but I don't have any lessons today," she said to Nawa. "Anyway, don't ask questions. Leave your shoes here." Nawa looked like she was about to protest, but complied. Her heavily beaded shoes looked out of place beside the few straggly sandals already there. Chaya looked around the compound as she tugged off her shoes. No one was within earshot. The monk in the compound stamped the broom on the ground and went round to the back. So I go in with you. If anyone asks, you know why we're here. Me, I'm going to sort of disappear." Oh, the Sims household are having a roast. Mr. M's on. Hi, Mr. M. World's Worst Children. No. It would be good, though, if we are going to do this after this book, if you've got any requests of old books that you've read before or new books that we can read new ones of together, then have a think. They stepped into the temple. It was dark inside, the stone floor cold under their feet and the smell of coconut oil in the tiny clay lamps lingering in the air. "What does sort of disappear even mean?" said Nawa. "Either you disappear or you don't." "Fine, I'm going to disappear." "Where to?" "That," said Chaya, making for an arched passage, "is none of your business." "In that case," Nawa started back towards the entrance, "you're on your own." "Hey!" Chaya ran up behind Nawa, her voice echoing through the passage. "What's wrong with you? You said you wanted to help." "I do, but you want to do everything your own way." Chaya was confused. So? "So you can't expect people to help you if you don't tell them things." "Why not? Once I disappear, your part's over." Chaya made a slashing action with her hand to emphasise that over. Over. "I only need you as a reason to be in the temple. Once I'm gone, you can leave." "Leave?" "Yeah, go home, go for a walk, eat those sugary sweets on your sideboard. Whatever." Nawa scowled. "I'm not going to..." "Chaya?" Soft footsteps padded down the curving passage and her teacher, Mahanama, shuffled into view. "Is that you, dear?" Chaya glared at Nawa. This would never have happened if Nawa had just done as she was told and not argued. "Yes, master." "What are you doing here so early? It's not Friday, is it?" He peered at Nawa, readjusting his robe over one stooping shoulder. Who is your friend? Chaya shuddered at friend. This is Nawa, master. Her father is the merchant, Kasim. I've brought her to see our temple. Nawa smiled at him awkwardly. She didn't bow to Mahanama, but he didn't look offended. Ah, so you come from the land of deserts. Deserts. This is why you pre-read stuff. You come from the land of deserts. Welcome, Nawa. You are free to look around any time. I will ask Ganana to unlock the shrine room for you as well. That'd be excellent, master, said Chaya. This was going better than she could have hoped. The shrine room was right by the passageway to the palace. Thank you, said Nawa. I've never seen a temple before. Where I come from, we have mosques. They're very different. Mahanama inclined his head. I have seen pictures. In fact, I have read many translations of books by your people. We have a few works of science and poetry here as well, brought from the great library in the north. I would love to hear more about your land, my dear, the deserts, the cities, and your journey here by sea. I think you would have many stories to tell. Nearly had desserts again then. Oh, we've got a few more people. Oh, Mr. Moody's been out chasing the rabbit in the garden. Mrs. Prince is on. Oh, Olivia's on. Hi, Liv. Mrs. Wood's on. Mr. Rotherham's on. Oh, good. Chaya nearly choked with annoyance. It's nothing you wouldn't already know, master. Now it was Nawa's turn to glare at her. I doubt that, Chaya, said Mahanama. We all have so much to learn from each other. There's a great big world outside this island. Oh, so it's an island. We didn't know that before. So the kingdom of Serendib is obviously an Indian island. Where was I? Nawa smiled. I'd love to come and talk to you. I could tell you about my country and all the places I visited on the voyage here. Come back when you finish looking around if you have time, said Mahanama. And maybe, if you like, you can attend lessons here once a week like Chaya. I would love that, said Nawa, brightening up considerably. But I don't know what my father would say. She seemed to droop a little at the thought. Chaya stared at the two of them. Nawa learned Sanskrit and the sciences at the temple like she did. Nawa wasn't even in normal school, so why would she get to have these extras? We have to go, she snapped at Nawa. Master, I'll show her around and then we'll leave. We won't take long. Oh, that's all right, my dear. Take your time. Mahanama nodded at Nawa, then moved off shakily using his stick. He stopped and looked at Chaya. You're a fair person always, Chaya. Remember to also be a kind person. Yes, master. As soon as Mahanama was out of sight, she tugged at Nawa's arm. Come on! Nawa followed her up the passage. What are you playing at? Said Chaya. You're just here as a cover. What was that whole sweet as jaggery act just now? What act? Said Nawa. Some people are just naturally nice, you know. Chaya was saved from replying by a passing monk, who smiled and nodded at her. Early lesson today, miss? He asked. No, we're just looking around, said Chaya. She wished these monks didn't start their day so early. She'd seen so many of them already. He was back a few moments later with a large iron key. Master Mahanama asked me to open the shrine room for you, miss. He bustled in front up a narrow passage to a thick, ancient-looking door. He jiggled the key in the lock and pushed open the door with a loud grating noise. Take your time looking around. I'll come by and lock up later. Nawa stared at the dozens of statues built along the wall. They're very old, Chaya said to Nawa, for the benefit of the monk who was leaving. Made in, a very long time ago. Chaya went to the door and peeped out into the passage. The monk was gone. She turned back to Nawa. OK, your part ends here. Walk around a bit and then leave in 15 minutes. She darted off towards the open door at the end of the passage that led to the temple grounds, where she could see a reposing statue nestled in the greenery outside. She stopped and turned back to Nawa in the shrine room. Thank you. You've been a great help. She scurried off, her bare feet slapping on the gritty stone floor. Outside, wilted frangipani flowers lay at the foot of a giant statue near the palace entryway. Next to it was the steep flight of steps to the threshold to the palace complex. She ran nimbly up it. "Miss Chaya?" A surprised voice rang out. She whipped around at the top of the stairs. It was the temple keeper, staring up at her, puzzled. "What are you doing up there? Are you trying to get into the palace?" "She's been caught!" Dun, dun, dun. I think we've got time for one more chapter. Oh, Olivia, you're eating fresh homemade bread. Yum! Oh, I could just eat some fresh homemade bread. Freya in 3W and Miss Watson. Hi, Miss Watson. Chapter 12. Chaya looked around and touched her chest. "Who? Me?" The temple keeper frowned. "Yes, you. Who else?" He was staring at her now, and it wasn't a very friendly stare. She tried to think of an excuse. "Are we not allowed to be up here, then?" "No, and I'm sure you know that." He came up the steps towards her slowly. "And who are we?" "It's my friend, Nawa. I was just showing her around the temple." "And? Where is she?" "She..." Chaya gulped. An idea struck her. "That's what I'm wondering. I've been searching all over for her." The keeper stopped and laughed. "Couldn't you have told me that, silly girl? Here I was, wondering if you were up to some mischief." "What? Me?" Chaya laughed, trying not to overdo it. "Never." "Well, I've got to get back to my tasks. If I see your little friend wandering about, I'll tell her you were looking for her." "Thanks." Chaya watched him go back into the passage leading to the shrine room. She peeped out from the gateway into the green lawns and rectangular pools of the royal complex. A tiny walkway snaked in front of her, heading through the palace grounds and upwards into the Queen's prayer hall. Chaya looked around and took a deep breath. In about 6 hours, Neil would be taken out of his underground prison cell on the way to his death. She patted her pocket to check she still had the explosives. Explosives. She was ready. Chaya stepped over the threshold and into the walkway. "Ah, Jack's dog was watching. I wonder if your dog would like my cat." He's listening. Albie. Rustle of treats gets him any day. Mrs. M's on. Hi, Mrs. M. And Jacob Parton. Hi, Jacob. She was inside the royal complex now. Chaya strode purposefully down the walkway. If someone were to see her now, no excuse would save her. She left the path and went into the terraced gardens, creeping downwards from the side. She crouched behind a low wall and took stock of her surroundings. This was the ground level, with the wide promenade in front of her. In the distance, she could just about make out 2 guards on either side of the bricked archway into the prison complex. Chaya edged towards it, keeping close to the palace's boundary wall. The good thing was there was plenty of greenery on the prison side. Unlike the manicured lawns and delicate foliage of the formal gardens, the entry to the prison compound was full of mighty trees and rough shrubbery. She froze as one of the patrolling figures turned towards her. She stayed stock still, hoping she blended into the surroundings in her dirt-coloured clothes. The figure turned back as it continued to pace around the grounds. Chaya continued on, almost flat against the boundary. High guard posts stood at regular intervals along the wall, but luckily for her, they were looking outside at intruders trying to get in. She passed low under them, so close she could hear snatches of conversations inside each of them. "Going to the wrestling with Samar this weekend?" said one of the guards to another as Chaya passed stealthily under them. "Leela is getting popular. I don't think the big boss will be happy," laughed someone in the next guard post. Dinner at my grandma's again. Her yam pudding's so runny," went the chat in the next post, and so on, the guards going on with their inane chatter as Chaya crept ever closer towards Neil. At last Chaya was on the prison side. She climbed deftly up a hal tree, her toes gripping its gnarled bark. At the top she moved over from branch to branch, avoiding an annoyed monkey and getting as close as possible to the prison entrance on its overhead canopy of trees. She froze at the sound of a voice below. "He's pretty young, isn't he?" Chaya leaned over and peered down through the leaves. 2 guards sat on a boulder, munching on sticks of sugarcane. I mean, he was actually crying at one point. It's not right. Chaya felt a stab of pain right through her heart. Shh, said the other. Someone might hear. We can't question these things. Yeah, I'd better keep my mouth shut. I just feel shame. They're obviously talking about Neil, aren't they? The guards fell silent as only the crunching of their sugarcane broke through the rustle of the trees. Chaya moved to the end of the branch and swung onto a wood apple tree next to it. The branch dipped down dangerously under her weight, and she scrabbled to grab something firm. A wood apple fell from an upper branch and bounced down near her. Chaya lunged for it, rocking the branch again, and a few more of the hard fruits fell down below, down to where the guards were sitting. Chaya held her breath. Ow! Said a guard, rubbing his head where the fruit had struck. He swore and lobbed the fruit hard against a tree, where it cracked on the trunk and fell down, the brown pulp rolling away. Chaya held her breath. As long as they didn't look up, she was fine. What was that? Said the other guard. And he looked up. Oh, should we have one more chapter? How long is it? It's really short. Let's have another chapter. We can't leave it there. It's too much of a cliffhanger. Who else is on now? Mrs. Williams says hi, Albie. Emily's cat loves the book. Glad you like it, Brooke. Steph's watching. Hi, Steph. Mrs. Henderson's on. Okay, chapter 13. Last one for today. Chaya froze, crouching low on the branch, her hands gripping the stalks growing out of either side. The man stared up in her direction, then shook his head. Stupid monkeys are a menace, he said to his partner. Chaya exhaled. Hopefully the man was just short-sighted. She moved along through the branches, jumping from tree to tree, sometimes coming across a group of monkeys. They stared as she passed, an intruder in their territory. Finally, she was directly over the prison building. Somewhere in there sat Neil, waiting as the hours ticked away. Now she needed to create a diversion. She stuck her hand into her pocket and drew out a stash of fireworks. They were from the New Year celebrations. She'd found them in Father's shed, then spent some time stringing them together. And one of the good-for-nothing boys from the riverside that Auntie so despised had also helped her with a device to cause a smoke screen, but that was for later. She struck a match and lit the end of the string. It fizzled and sparked up, the flame zipping downwards at speed. Chaya drew her arm back and threw it as hard as she could. She knew exactly what she was aiming for. The explosives fell at the back of the prison, where the open kitchen was and where she knew nobody would be at this time of the morning. The whole thing exploded mightily, bits of clay pots and pans shooting all over the place and clumps of old congee splatting into the air. Chaya was nearly thrown out of a tree in spite of bracing herself for the noise. Around her the trees vibrated and monkeys screeched, and from below came shouts and the sound of panicked running. A line of dish rags caught fire, and guards came pouring into the area from all over. Chaya swung down and dashed into the prison building. The place smelled as bad as before, all dampness and sweat, but no one was about in the entrance hall. She hurried to the passage of cells she had visited the previous day. The iron railing barred it, locked shut. "Neil!" she shouted through the bars. "Neil, can you hear me?" All she could see was a toothless man in the first cell, who surveyed her with interest. An answering cry came from the last cell. "Chaya?" Neil sounded incredulous. "Yes! Neil, where are the keys to the gate?" There was a roar and a crackle of the fire, and a gust of smoky air blew in through the entrance. I'm not sure," said Neil, his hands gripped the iron bars at the bottom of the passage. "What are you doing here? Get out before they find you." "I'm going to get you out first. Let me go and look for the keys." That made 2 doors to unlock before freeing Neil. "You need Jans," said the toothless man in the first cell. "Pardon?" said Chaya. The man looked at her impassively. "That's the man who's in charge of the keys." "Do you know where he keeps them?" But he stared through her as if he had never been talking to her. "I'll take it that's a no then. OK, hold on tight, Neil. I'll be back." The outer hall was still empty, and through the doorway over the top of the stairs she saw thick black smoke in the air. Something else seemed to have caught fire. Chaya paused for a moment and listened. Hopefully no one was hurt. There was a cacophony of shouts and water sloshing as guards fought to contain the fire. Chaya coughed, her throat feeling itchy and dry. The keys had to be here somewhere. She hunted all around, but there was no sign of them. She bent over the ledge under which the prison logs were kept and swept her hand around the recess to check if they were there. Heavy footsteps sounded on the stairs. Chaya sprang up on the ledge and hoisted herself onto a torch bracket on the wall. A very large man, with an open mouth and chipped teeth, tramped into the entrance hall, a chinking noise coming from him every time he moved. She watched him from her perch above, and when he passed under her, she saw something glint at his side. The man had a bunch of keys on his belt. A bunch of keys. So this must be Jan's. Chaya dropped down on top of him and grabbed for the keys. He staggered around with her on his head, roaring while she threw a canister to the ground. Smoke billowed everywhere. Jumping off the guard, she raced to the railing and fitted a key into it. She bent low to see through the smoke, fitting key after key with shaking hands while Jan staggered towards her through the haze. One of the keys slotted in, and Chaya yanked the gate open with a loud creak. She was slipping through when she was pulled up short by a jerk from behind as Jans lifted her clean off the floor. As the smoke cleared, she found herself face to face with him, pressed against the wall with her feet dangling above the ground. "Really sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have done that." Jans's nostrils flared as he brought his face, purple with rage, closer to Chaya's. And that's the end of chapter 13. And we're going to leave it there. Who else have we had there? Oh, Freddie, I'm glad you like it still. And, oh, Alfie's on. Hi, Alf. Oh, and Annabelle's on. That's nice. Oh, good day, Carly. And Ava and Belle and Hudson. Hi. So that's where we're going to leave it today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it again. I'm going to come back on Monday and do the next few chapters, probably at the same time, 5 o'clock, but I'll post to tell you if there's any change, but it'll be, 5 o'clock probably on Friday. I hope you all have a nice weekend. I don't know if the weather's meant to be as good, but I hope you still manage to go outside and play in the garden. Miss Watson's put some baking posts on, so have a look at those, because that might give you something to do, seeing what you've got in the cupboards, or you can always make a recipe card for her based on what you have got. I had a really weird concoction at lunch today based on leftover veg that I had in the fridge that I didn't want to waste. And, if in doubt, there's always rich teas. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Stay safe and stay positive, and I will see you next week. Bye.